Okay, so I'll just start by introducing myself first and then introduce our two hosts for this evening. So my name's Sarah Lefebvre. Many of you may know me as the editor of Ludagogy magazine. It's Ludagogy magazine that is organising all of these sessions as a tie-in with the current issue, which is all about prototyping and playtesting. So we still, I think, got 6 or 7 of these sessions to go up until Saturday evening. And as I say, it ties in with the current issue, which is now out, came out on Sunday. So do make time alongside watching these sessions, or attending or watching these sessions, to have a look at ludagogy.co.uk and see what our wonderful contributors have written for us this month, including... No, Eduardo, you haven't written one for this month, have you? No, last month. You wrote about this. You wrote about your game last month and the month, I think the month before as well. So there's a couple of articles in the magazine which very much tie in with the session we're about to have now, if you want to go back and have a look in our archives. Okay, I'm afraid you're going to have to introduce yourself, Bruno, because I haven't got any copy to introduce you, but I will introduce Eduardo. Eduardo is an educational games designer and games-based learning researcher at the Polytechnic Institute of Porto. He focuses on developing complex game systems through world building and other RPG elements. He also leads a research project to bring the first open world educational game to the classroom. And oh, God, I just... Oh. Just muting people as they come in. Where did I get to? He also leads a research project to bring the first open world educational game to the classroom and as an autonomous learning experience for K-12 students. And he's also developing a game studio alongside teachers and developers. His game, Liber-Domus, is currently focused on grade 6 mathematics and is geared to the Portuguese curriculum. However, there are plans not only to cover other subjects and grades throughout K-12, but also to regionalise for other countries too. And I'm sure, Eduardo, you'd be very keen to speak to any educators who are in the room about your plans for that and how they can join in.
Yeah, for sure, because this type of development is very much based on a continuous interaction between teachers and developers.
Good.
We at the technical side start developing the games and the mechanics to accommodate the needs of the educational contents, but it doesn't work if we don't have teachers on our side to help us. And that's actually the role of Bruno, so I can introduce him that way.
Okay.
Bruno is a primary and 5th and 6th grade teacher, and he's currently not only teaching, but also contributing with our project by helping us make connections between the narratives that we create for the game, which are already based on the specificities that are needed for the educational contents, in this case, mathematics. He does not only that, but he also helps create quests and create mechanics that help the student as he plays the game to connect with the educational contents, and in a way that the student doesn't feel it's forced. So it's not just creating games in the middle of a narrative that have absolutely nothing to do with what is happening in the world. It's quite the opposite. It's to create something that it's the basis for everything, and that's basically what we're going to talk about today. So yeah, Bruno, it's the person that basically tries to get the brain of a teacher inside the game.
I couldn't do a better presentation about myself. So everything is done and said.
Okay, well, take it away. Thrill us all with your world building and so on.
Okay, so basically the idea of this workshop came up because we come from creating RPGs and creating and using RPGs in our classrooms to try to motivate and engage the, students into certain topics, and they're usually used in more specific ways, like to focus on ethics or specific morals or citizenship or other topics which are specific, non-specific to the classroom. But as time goes by, we start noticing that there's a lot of opportunities in RPGs to create a specific dynamic in the classroom that it's not only interesting in terms of motivation and engagement of students, but it's also a powerful tool for students to create like those mini projects inside the world that it's their own, and it's a world capable of creating and accommodating several situations, several mechanics that allow the student and the teacher to interact continuously throughout the whole year, and then the student is continuously engaged, and it's not just like one classroom activity, it's a whole year activity. Even something that they can push forward afterwards. So this connects with the specific mechanics of RPG, which are world building and the creation of narratives and role-playing elements. All of those three are separate entities. They are all connected, obviously, but they are separate entities. And they have to be seen in different ways. And what we're going to do in this workshop is not only show you through Bruno one of the examples we have of an RPG in practice in the classroom, but we'll also try to create with the audience like a baseline for a world, okay? So that you can start thinking about how you as teachers, as educators, can use something like this in the classroom, right? Then we'll finish with some specific situations, like how to implement rewards and how to keep the world going, and then conclude the workshop. So this is like a very initial introduction and very short introduction. I will not prolong myself in presenting the dynamics of RPGs and storytelling and all of that here. We do, however, have a shared folder that we're going to share with every participant at the end of the workshop, as long as they request it, of course, which has some additional research and some very interesting articles, which will help you understand also the importance and the impact that RPG, storytelling, and world building separately have in the classroom. So Bruno, do you want to start with the example?
Yeah, I don't know, like if you wanted first to talk a little bit about history first, or if I should go
No, you can go. You can go.
So maybe I'll share. As it was said before I share, this is a really open workshop. So if you have any doubts or any comments, you can like interrupt me. But we do have a specific time reserved on the end for some sharing and some questions that are more deep, and we are very interested to like explain you whatever you may need. So regarding presenting, I'm going to present you a work that has been developed not only by me, but my partner as well in the internship that I did. And I don't know if you can see the screen share that I'm sharing right now. Yeah, everything okay?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Right. So basically, as a normal planification, there is all of these aspects regarding the subject itself that we're teaching. This class was given into children of 8 and 9 years, so it's equivalent of a 3rd grade here in Portugal. And we, as a teachers, as a monodocent, like we work with all the subjects. So we must teach the language, Portuguese in case, some environment studies and mathematics all together. So here, usually we do some regular planifications and we specify whichever contents we want to teach in this class. So as a regular class, we have all of these theory parts all together and very well defined. And we'll use this and adapt this into some role playing and some game. And now I'm going to explain you how I did it specifically. So The content, just to let you know, it was regarding the mathematic part, had to do with using coins and values of trades. The language was a lot about hearing and understanding, since it's such a young age. And the environment studies were regarding the society and citizenship. These are both two big areas that are worked, especially in this kind of games. So, first of all, what happened in the class, I later on will give you some specific examples with photographs of the kids, but there was this teach acting, that's what we called, since the teachers itself, there were two in the class, they presented some background story in order to get the students all absorbed in this different world that was about to happen. And this story was like, had a little script, the teachers themselves, they almost characterized themselves and did this performance as actors in order to emphasize the kids and for them to get more motivated. And we used several also objects like mini scripts and manuscripts that looked really old, so that it was an immersive activity. After this storytelling, and let me show you these pictures, we increased this immersive environment with some videos, some video games that could be used, like in this case, you can see here, Age of Mythology, that is not used as the game itself, but it's used just as a tool to then help us out to develop all of the story and also concretely construct the story with the kids. So just an initial story, and afterwards is the part where the children should have characters. And usually in such role-playing games, each person can choose their character and create specific characteristics about themselves. But in this case, since we only had few classes to present this, we already presented the kids with specific papers, and these papers were always related with some kind of jobs or kinds of activities that someone should have in a society. So in this case, they were divided in some councils, like the Council of Education, the Council of the Ministry of Building, and each one of them had this specific part. And we as educators know that this is so much important for the children to have a specific role in the subject, in the concrete action that we're doing. So here we also used some maps in order to help us out for them. In this case, every student had a tablet, but if you don't have such digital devices, you can also have the always a piece of paper with some info, and they really enjoyed watching and knowing what they were supposed to do. Here, of course, it's in Portuguese, and I'm sorry for not translating everything, but it was just too much. But just for you to know, there's this Council of Health and Security, and there was one children that was like medic, another vet, saver of lives. So each one had a very specific part on this full society, which could lead afterwards for a full interaction between students. Because if there was some problem that then developed within the story, then this specific student of medic could save the others, or the student that was the keeper of the books, he would have some more information in this specific guide that he could search for. So this is really a very big activity where they can use different kind of devices in order to search for information and create more information. Here you can see also that students use these other apps to participate in these RPG kind of games. There's a lot of creation, and I told you already that they didn't have much time, but still we implemented some activities and some kind of problems that would make them create and in this case draw a wall or draw a solution for a problem that was found by the class itself. And not only do we have the digital devices for them to share with each other whatever they needed, some opinions, we also have a system of using cards in order to have a quicker answer, because we have like 22 students in each class, and maybe you can have even more depending on what kind of teachers you are. And in this case, for these small choices that we need to hear every student, but if we really give them the opportunity to explain fully their opinion, then you cannot not do as many activities as you want. That is actually a good thing, but it will take you a lot of time. If you want, you can do such class, but you need to limitate this class for this big sharing of students. So in this case, we use some other activities and some other devices. In this the case was some cards, and each color had the meaning of I agree, I disagree, or I completely disagree. And then from then on, we would give them the work. We created also physical and manipulatory devices for them to use, because we believe and we know that it's very important for them to really touch and to feel that they participate physically in this activity. So as we know in RPG games, if not digital, we have usually this board. This board was actually made previously in other classes, and we joined a lot of activities. We joined the art, we joined mathematics in order to learn how to do this. We had some Portuguese in order to create our little chests with some tips. So all of the students worked in order to construct their own game, which is something very valuable as well. Here was, like I said, the previous drawing that we made all together. There was some, all of the problems were the students, the ones that raised these problems. They were the ones that found the problems within the society. But if somehow they had some lack of initiative, we had some reserve. So we had already pinpointed some kind of situations that could happen badly for them to afterwards solve. And this is just like RPG games. Sometimes we can even have some cards or some randomized dice that creates a situation. And from then on, you evolve or not. And in this case, we also had prepared some problems that we would face the students with for them to develop. Of course, they need to feel not only motivated, but really interested in class. So we didn't only change the aspect of the class, so we put them in groups, we organized them in different ways. And like I said, each group was this minister, and we asked them to really create their own character only after working with the specific contents that we wanted, in this case, Portuguese, mathematics, and natural science. And I believe that this is most of the activity. Of course, I told you before that we needed to do this full planification, which is better to connect the contents. But one of these classes, after you get along with it and how it works and what can happen, and mostly how can you mediate the situations, because you will never know what happened inside their heads and you'll never know what they are telling you about. So once you get comfortable with such activities, you can plan this in just one page. So this was all we needed for one of the classes. Like, you don't need to plan anything, just need to get to know which context you want to give, how you want to give them, and then let the kids take the lead and just adapt with them. And if you have enough people resources, since we had 2 teachers there, we were able to pinpoint the full choices that the children made in this board. So this was very, very good for afterwards evaluate their choices, to comment about them. And in next classes, we would review what we did, and we would self-evaluate ourselves with the students, which is something that lately we've been working on to do, to have the students self-evaluate themselves in order to increase their availability to know how much they're good at doing such stuff. And it's a really good graphic that they know how we did so much stuff. And this is the presentation, like very short, about specific intervention that we did. And I believe that later on, maybe you want to know like more details, and I will be very happy to share them with you. But I think that from now on, we can just keep going with this and later on come back for this if needed.
Yeah, I think the idea right now is to maybe just explain a bit further what is the role of the teacher in this kind of environment. So basically, it's like Bruno said, you go to a classroom and you don't really know what it's going to happen. You have a class plan, and you have a curriculum that you want to follow and you want to reach, and you have certain educational goals, of course. But when you go to the classroom, what you need to focus on, it's not the world itself. That's the beauty of world building, is that it creates a world which is so big if you do it right, and so differentiated with so many options and so many possibilities, that when you create it, you can go to a whole year of classrooms and always have something to do with them. And what you need to focus then is how you want the game to proceed, the world to proceed, the narrative, so that it fits inside what you want them to learn. And so that's how it goes. So that when you go to the classroom, students are eager to know more about your world, about what is going to happen in the world, and at the same time, how they will interact with it. And only then they will focus on the contents. So it's not like, okay, we're going to learn this and it's not going to be relevant in any situation at all. I have no idea how I can connect this with the real world. It's completely the opposite. They start by thinking about the real world, and then they start thinking about solutions. Okay, because what Bruno showed you about 2 minutes into the example was he called them problems that the students needed to learn. That's not problems, that's quests, that's adventures. Okay, and what you're doing by creating a world is creating that scenario, that mindset, and then you push it further, as Bruno did, and very well, with the character development, because that way they're not John or Peter or Rita, or their characters inside the game with specific quirks, specific characteristics, specific flaws, their job, their role inside a group, a specific group, and suddenly all of the dynamics of a classroom can change. So you can have really shy kids, and all of a sudden they bloom, they start talking nonstop because they're really motivated and engaged in the activity, and that's the beauty of role playing, because for a tiny moment they forget who they are and where they are, and they go to a better place, to a place of wonder and fantasy. And that's how we should see the role of the teacher, as someone who will guide them through the curriculum, through these adventures. Okay, and our experience, we've been developing adventures for mathematics for 6th grade, and it's hard. I mean, it's really complicated sometimes to connect specific contents like geometry, equations, stuff like that, into adventures. But it is possible. So what we know for sure is that we can create this type of worlds and this type of activities for any subject, and that's what we're going to try right now. Actually, I think we can basically store like half an hour at least, and I would love for everyone in the audience, if they want to participate in creating a brand new world out of nothing. And when I mean that, I mean it for sure. I'm still undecided if we're going to use a map that is already created, that we can use as a basis, as an example, or we can even create a brand new map. I'll leave it up to the participants if they want to go through that part, because it is a bit hard to sometimes go through a whole world building process in just a half an hour, but we're going to try to embrace as many contents and as many specificities of world building as possible in a very short amount of time, just so that we can show that it is very easy, especially with the tools that we have and that we want to share with you at the end of the workshop. Okay, so does anyone want to participate directly, or should we and Bruno start building a world?
Yeah, maybe we should ask for who's able to
Hi,
who's able to speak, who's able to share with us some some opinions, and then to also ask them if you are a teacher, what's your position in this, and which kind of classes do you have, for us to already start thinking about stuff.
Yeah, for example, Brian, what do you teach?
I'm not a school teacher. I worked with Sarah a few years ago, and I design simulations for use in business training context.
Okay. Were you thinking about a specific context for, imagine that you want to create a world, a fantasy world, something that you could use afterwards. Do you have anything in mind that you, in a specific topic, for example?
I'm pretty open. I'm interested in the idea of people having to build things like build houses or build bridges.
All right. Okay. So yeah, I think we can go with that. Okay, so imagine I'm going to start sharing the screen now. And I'm going to ask Bruno to write down everything that
I'm writing down.
All right. Okay, so basically, we're going to start with a previously built map. And one of the things that we have already here in the folder, in the shared folder, is that we have some free software that you can use. And it's completely open, so you can basically use this for maps, for characters, for narrative building, so that you can then use it in the classroom, and students love this. Or you can use it just so that you can wrap your thoughts, your train of thoughts inside the world. So I'm going to start with a pre-built map. And this is the beauty of current situation of technology. It's like you have so many tools. It's really easy to just go for it. And as a teacher, right now, it's the easiest we can get to building worlds for classrooms without taking weeks, months to build one. So imagine that Brian has a classroom and he wants the classroom to start building and think about a world specifically to build. So we're going to create a map somewhere, like it's full of towns, full of rivers and seas and mountains and forests. And imagine that there's a group, which are the students, a group of characters who are going to show up on the coast right next to this little town here, but they're not welcome, okay? And so they have to build their own city, and they have to start making sure that they have enough food, they have enough heat, because winter is coming soon, and they have to start building a society, because soon they'll start drawing attention, and people will either want to join them or start collecting taxes from them. And so there's always an interaction between the characters and the world that you're going to build. So basically, when you build a world, you always have to make sure that you have like a massive world like this, so that you can always have plenty of stuff for the characters to do. Because the dynamics of the world, you have to imagine a world as it's always in a static situation before our characters get into it. Okay, the world you build is static. Nothing is happening, absolutely nothing. And afterwards, you start building adventures, and you adapt the game and adapt the world to those situations. Like, for example, that your characters start building a tower. Then in the next classroom, you go to the map builder and you build a tower. And like software like this, and I'm not trying to sell anything here, it's really easy to use. And there's like 2 or 3 websites just like Incarnate, which is the one I prefer to use due to its simplicity. You'll probably just need like 1 or 2 hours to get started, and it's really easy to do. So imagine, using Brian's example, that your character started showing up in this situation, in this location, and you start creating like a location, pinpointing a location in which they are going to land. And from here, we start thinking about narrative. So this is already pre-made, so this takes a lot of time. But one of the things you can do is also, I almost forgot talking about this. Incarnate, for example, and a lot of other websites have thousands or dozens of thousands of maps pre-created by other users who are free to use and edit and use to your own desire. So you can basically do that and even simplify further the world building process. What you, just to get back to what I was saying, the only thing you need to be careful about is that making sure that you have enough for your characters to do. Let me give you an example. If they land here, they need wood, for example, to build their houses, and they need stones. And they also need tools, and tools means they need iron. And so that means that there's an iron mine here, and they need to get here somehow, okay? And there's some sort of crossing that you can do, but this crossing is dangerous. So they really should build a bridge, okay? And then they go and mine here. There's a port here. This means that there's a market. This means that they can trade resources here. This coast seems fine for fishing, so let's assume they fish as well. And there's also another town here. We can go further and even start creating boundaries. One of the things Bruno did in his classroom, which is really interesting, you always have two ways of creating dynamics in the classroom. You can go full co-op, like the whole classroom has to work together to create something. They can go in separate cooperations. So basically each group is cooperating to develop something separately, but they are all one faction, one nation. And you can go with competitions as well. So if you want competitions, for example, you can imagine that this village here and this town here are one city, one nation, and then you have another one around here, and then you have another one here. One of the things I'm not going to expand a lot, but I can talk to you about very quickly, is that you can create borders, which are very fun to use because you basically create separations between the map, and then all of a sudden, you have nations, okay? And that's even better for dynamics. And all of a sudden, you have two nations. And so, yeah, the dynamics of world building are like this, and each of this is a different object that it's separated. So as I said, this map can be as dynamic as you want it to be. Okay, so let's go with characters. Bruno, I'm going to hand it over to you because you already have experience with that.
Yeah, and maybe I can also just add a little bit still regarding this map, just for you not to get concerned, like, this is so huge. How can I just wanted like this little village for me to use with my class, or like this Incarnate website can really get you like whatever you need. You can go like from such a big place to only even a room. So imagine that you're just having a class regarding microbes and you're like a science teacher. You can just pinpoint and get a map of a room, like a sketch and a plan of it, a blueprint of a room. And then from then on, you can like create a full story just with that map. So this is really interactive, and you can even go from a blank and you just add the objects. So it's very, if you ever played Sims, it's even better than that. Regarding the character,
can I just ask a question?
Yes.
Yeah, so sure. I mean, obviously, like every RPG player, I love a good bit of high fantasy. So are they all sort of like high fantasy, or is that just because that's what the users have built in there? I mean, presumably you can build anything you like in there, can you? The mechanics allow you.
You can, and the type of magic system that you have in your game, it's really up to you. Usually, when creating I dare to say that it really depends on the age, age group of your class, because for younger classes, it's a bit hard to start talking about magic systems without having them add to a bit of confusion when they're developing, when we are already explaining this, because the teacher creates this, obviously, but afterwards in the classroom you can adapt and create a completely different, you can come back from the first classroom with a completely different idea, and you have to make this world their own as well. And this is already a bit to take in, so it depends on how much time you have, and usually with older classes it's easier because they already had a bit of contact with fantasy in some sort of media, and they already understand a bit about wizards or about alchemy or something like that.
So if I wanted to build, let's say, as a more science fiction type setting, or maybe even a more realistic setting, I don't know, maybe you know, film noir, detective fiction type thing, would I be able to do this in this, or is this just the sort of setting?
There's a lot of settings here. There's sci-fi and there's modern settings as well. Obviously, a lot of the maps here are more medieval-like or fantasy-like, but that's just what people are used to building.
I mean, go with it. I love a bit of fantasy.
Yeah, but there's tons of stuff you can do, and you can even insert your own tokens here, your own images, so that you can even create the characters built by players, or stuff that players built. Like, as long as you have an image file, you can place it here and place it inside the game. So you can even have that kind of dynamics depending on what your class is. If they want to draw something, draw their own character, and we'll get further into that with online generators. But yeah, there's tons of stuff you can do about that, and I think that's actually a good way of changing to a different thing. I want to mention before characters. Sorry, Bruno. Just thinking that maybe we could add to this, because not a lot of people know about this, which is online map generators. So instead of building your own, if you're thinking about something like really quick that you want to use as a setting, you can use generators. And we have like this really cool list of online generators you can use. And you can just generate a new town, like for example, a medium town, and it has farms, it has greens, it has a river, doesn't have walls, and doesn't have temples, and yeah, let's go. And there you have it. You have here a town with a harbor, a castle, a river, a coast, and even like some sort of garden, an old town, tons of houses, and you export this and you're done. And you can do this for cities. You can do this for sure. No, not for shores, for regions actually. And you create a new region, and this is cool because this is already giving you some settings that you can use for your own classroom. Like here you have the Tower of the Evil Witch, which is awesome. You have a Rabbit Camp Village, Peaks of Gods, all cool names, and this is the work of a magical person to create this online generators, and this makes our job so much easier. And you have tons of stuff. You have even a 3D viewer of the city you already created, just to give it a bit more immersion to what you're building. Okay, so you go here, you create this, you throw it here, and tada, you have a 3D generation of your city. And then you can have generators for just about anything you want to do building your world. But we'll get into that. Let's start with characters. Bruno?
Yeah, just to add, like, it's important for you to understand that in this building content, of course, usually teachers are the ones that are gonna build the worlds in order to use with children, because of course it's usually you have a preset, and then from then on, you work with them and you create the story. But if we talk about older students and you talk about specific content, like imagine like 9th grade of geometry, you can make your own students build specific cities regarding contents of geometry or organization of the terrain itself. So this is very sensitive. And as you can see, like there was different kind of drawings regarding the maturity and the age of the kids. So if you have younger kids, you can use very like low poly graphics. And if you have older students that you need to captivate, like from higher school, you can even use like specific drawings that look like really professional. Regarding the characters, advancing into that, Eduardo, I don't know if you want me to show the hero forge already for them to create, or if you want me to talk about character personalization first.
I can share it here, but the idea is that we can go from the character generation to the character creation.
So basically, first of all, this that you said, maybe it's better to explore it a bit more, because it's very important for us teachers to see that there are some students that don't talk with us, don't talk with colleagues, that are very shy, regardless the year. They feel like there's some barrier between students and teacher. And when they get this character, when they see themselves within this character and they have relations with it, either it's if it is closer to their personality or actually the opposite, they can create something that's nothing to do with them. They become the character. So like imagine little John has this unavailability to speak with us, but as soon as he becomes the great mage of Alacantros, then he can speak with us. And this really happens because it's something that we saw in practice. Students that couldn't usually participate, they become very active, as Eduardo said. Now, regarding the characterization, there are also many websites that you can use in order to aid you to create. We actually, within our company, already made a game where there was being some sort of randomization regarding characterization and aspects. And the important thing is that every aspect needs to have some kind of story behind it. Like they can say it's a very altruistic person, but then students need to specify a little bit, why is this character altruistic, like what has happened. And regarding like language and actually the creativity process of children, this is a very important path of the gameplay itself, because students nowadays have enormous difficulties in taking choices, and when they create a character, they're always taking choices. And we're actually going to talk more about that because of the role play itself and all of the game. But when they create and when they choose, I want my character to be like this, they're already taking choices that will affect after the future of this character. And this is very important because we see nowadays that we even ask them just say a random color, and they are like, no, you can choose. Usually they have a lot of difficulty to choose specific things that will stay forever. But this kind of games will help them, and this creator of character characterization will help them to get comfortable with these choices. Eduardo, I don't know if you want me. Yeah, you're now in the end.
Now, for example, we can go back here to this example and imagine that the character is already inside the world, okay, and suddenly you have to create different characters for each member of the classroom. One of the things I want to mention is that imagine that you're teaching language. For example, this is an awesome way of engaging with students regarding language, because they can create their own. They can use the language you're teaching to create their own names and to create their own characters in that language, and to create names for locations, names for objects, names for any kind of thing that you might use for this. So, as I said, we were talking about building a new location, and Brian was mentioning like started building houses and all of that. So let's make our group a group of mixed match of builders, like someone was a blacksmith, So we have a blacksmith, we have someone that like works with wood, and we have a stonemason as well, and we also have a farmer, a fisherman, and someone that was previously a soldier. So this is just to help you. Ideally, this kind of dynamics happens with the classroom. So for example, imagine you as participants have a specific function that you think it's important here. Okay, so maybe we should have a hunter-gatherer because we don't have enough farms, or maybe if we build a farm right now, we only get crops like in 6 months or a year. And so we need to have someone hunter-gatherer. And this kind of dynamics is happening in real time in the classroom, and students start opening up. So let's build. One of the things I really like, one of the character generators I really like is the M heroes, because you have different classes, and you can always, of course, use only humans if you want a low fantasy setting or a no fantasy setting, but you can also have different races if you want to. I would, even if it's a no magic system, no magic world that you're creating, you can use this kind of characterization to add a bit of flavor into the world you're building and into the characters as well. A lot of students seem to enjoy being a dwarf or an elf, or even a gnome sometimes. So all you have to do is go to this website and create a random character, and just click as many times as you want. And then suddenly one of the students say, I like this one. All right, so suddenly, once again, if you're just creating a setting for your students, not related to language, you can use just what's here, or create something if you're not an English speaking teacher. But if you want, you can use what's here. And then there's already a few traits that are placed here, but there's tons of traits that you can use, and you don't have to use these. This is just really cool, and I really like DM Heroes because of this, because it gives you some idea of what could be, and you can randomize this as many times as you want. And I think I've never found an equal set of traits. So basically the amount of randomization here it's completely massive.
And wait, don't change, just to add, like, as you can see, these traits are like not crazy. So they are traits that can actually be seen in a normal person. And if you're a language teacher and you want kids to explore this, it would be amazing for them. Like, for instance, it says you can't sleep without reason, or never changes their facial expression. It's very important, like, for the teachers to ask students to then justify this kind of traits, as we were saying before. Because usually teachers say, okay, do this writing essay about summer. And they are like already bored with such activity. But when they have such a randomization traits, and then they need to justify and have already a character around it, it will get such more motivated. And sorry for interrupting, but it's very important for them to see that these can have so many explorations, and it's just a little website where it gives you some random characterization, and you can explore it any way you want.
Yeah, it's true. And not only that, the teacher can actually use this as an excuse for adventures. Like, I'm looking at this, and apparently Tavan wants to start a war with a neighboring city. So yeah, suddenly, Tavan, you wake up one day in your camp and you're thinking, okay, maybe this is today that we're going to build a wall. And oh no, where's Tavan? And Tavan is racing towards the city, trying to attack it all by himself. So this kind of scenario, all of a sudden you have dynamics, and this is what's going to give you. That's the role-playing element. The world building, it's important because it gives you a setting, and the narrative is also important because it can help you bring the world into the setting of the participants. But then the role-playing element is what's going to give you the adventures. Okay.
So that's really interesting, because I was wondering about asking a question about where the narrative where it comes from, where does it emerge from? So do you find that you kind of have a set narrative that you want to go through, like I suppose almost like a lesson plan, or do you find that narrative emerges as you go along, so the participants are actually
That
creating the
depends
narrative?
actually a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
me and Bruno actually have different opinions regarding
Yeah.
that. Yeah, well, for example, what Bruno I think was trying to say right now is that it's a really cool, interesting activity to make the world their own, for the students to have the narrative. But sometimes that depends on the classroom. If you have a really difficult classroom, it's kind of hard for them to all of a sudden open up enough to create their own narrative, because that starts to get, everyone can create a narrative, but what you will see after a very short amount of time is that your narrative comes from within. So comes from your experiences, from your traumas, from everything you've seen and visited and did previously, or wanted to. And so that forces you to open up. Okay, and some students are really not comfortable with that. I would say that the first time you create a world with children, with students, you should build your own narrative as a teacher, and then have them come up with different adventures afterwards. And then when they are comfortable enough with each other and with the teacher, you then invite them to create their own world. But that's a different part. But actually, I'll mention it now because we're running a bit out of time. One of the things that we placed here in the drive are 3 different adventure creators. So basically, these are documents like a Grandmaster Adventure Planner or the journal forms that are like basic documents in which you can create your own adventure from scratch, following a specific pattern, but it's a very open plan. Okay, and for example, if you go to the Game Master Adventure Planner, you have everything you need. Like for example, the name of the adventure, who's the game master, when was the session, and what kind of adventure happened, and if it's referenced to another adventure. You have locations, you can create locations, and you could describe everything that happened here, and you can adapt these documents to your classroom. So this kind of document really helps you structure your classroom really well, and then give the students the opportunity to keep this to themselves, because I even wrote about this a few months ago to Ludogogy, which is to give the opportunity to any student to grab this world, make it their own, and create their own narrative, their own fantasies, their own adventures. And all of a sudden you have someone that's building writing out of pleasure and not out of being forced to, because it's an essay that they have to do. And so this is a really, really interesting structure and a very powerful system for a lot of things. Getting back to the characters, so I was saying, imagine that Tavan is a hunter-gatherer, and you can do an additional activity with students, which is to create their own character. If you're, you can create this and download the images, and this is completely free as well. Hero Forge, you have Hero Forge, you have Eldritch Foundry as well, and you also have Vestfalia. These are 3D hero generators. So basically, you have a 3D character with tons of customization opportunities. Once again, you can create a fantasy setting or a regular setting. Like for example, just a human, and you can create all sorts of shapes and forms, and give it a bit of color as well. And then all of a sudden you have a character, which is the character that the student used, and they can make it their own very quickly. And this allows them not only to connect with the world and connect with the narrative, but they can they can keep this, they can download it. If your school has enough resources, you can even make a 3D print out of this because it allows you to download STLs, so you can print it. And yeah, in terms of character generation, creating characters for your story, it's really cool, because as soon as a character, if a student gets immersed enough into the character, they become the character and not the student, not the shy student. Going back a bit regarding narrative, just to connect with what Sarah was saying, I usually find it easier for you to create your own narrative. But sometimes, I mean, not all of us are writers. Not all of us have a creative mind that you can easily put to use. And it's especially hard if you're, as a teacher, you're always overworked. You're always stressed. You're always tired. So obviously, I mean, you want to go to the easy route, otherwise you'll burn out. So that's where generators come into place. And more important, starters. Starters are a brilliant tool. And there's like 1,000 starters of all of the different things that you can imagine to create a brilliant narrative from start. I will give you an example in just a second. Bruno, do you want to talk about characters just in terms of your example with children, just as I search for
maybe I can even like try to share one of the activities that we've done. Let me see where this is. Okay, I'll go back here for the board where I have the characters pinpointed. And yeah, we have these 4 main devices or main groups, and as Eduardo said, we can either make them help each other, and or we can make them fight each other. Not it doesn't need to be specifically fighting, but they can like conflict with each other. Like we can even take it political way if we wanted, like if it's higher students or if we're studying philosophy, we can have one of the students with some arguments, some other with others, and they can just then create characters with that specific arguments, and that they see themselves with that. And in this case, we really had like a construction like Eduardo was creating here regarding Brian's idea. We had also the miner, the rock person that worked with the rock, the woodcraft, and each one of them had this specification that afterwards could implement and create and improve and give more personalization to it. Eduardo.
Yeah, I'm ready to share it again. So basically what you're seeing here, it's the work of Leslie Haas, which is a researcher from the University of Iowa in the United States, and she's working with us to create a world for the 5th grade for STEM, for teaching STEM. And so we're creating a digital world, but she started with a narrative and a world. So all of this was created with seeders. So just all of those tools that you have here, which for example can give you a concept of a hero, like 47 heroes, and you have Polonia, which is the 2nd daughter of Osatur, and all of a sudden you have a hero or a goddess. Or you can have bad guys, you can have villainous cults, orders. You have stuff that might happen in a tower, or background and details of a fantasy setting. And what she did was, in the space of 3 days, and I'm not kidding, it was 3 days, she created 5 pages long of world building. And she created like this massive world in which there's this is a post-pandemic world, and in this pandemic, 90% of the population in the world disappeared, and it was left with 4 factions. And so she built the story of a faction, and our hero starts here. And the idea for her is that she can use this in the classroom as well. So instead of a hero, she is going to have a group of children, and these children, 11-year-old children, are going on a pilgrimage to see their a magic forest, and they have to travel all around the world reach that sacred place. Okay, and so basically these are the Gaians, the name of the faction in which the hero is born into, and they have the pilgrimage to the sacred ice forest. And I'm just showing this. I'm not going to tell you the whole story, but I'm just going to tell you that this is really good world building and really good scenario that you can use with your students. And it has all of the elements that you need. You have what type of people the Gaians are, like they are engineers by nature. They use geothermal energy most of all to heat their houses, heat their water, and to produce electricity. They are also miners and blacksmiths, also goldsmiths as well. They are wealthy, but they have a theocracy. They are based in a theocracy, and so there's a high priestess who commands the nation, and it's a matriarchal society in which men are viewed as lesser. And so I'm telling you this because this is something that we haven't discussed yet, is that you can connect all of the worlds that you're building, the narrative that you're building, with other aspects of teaching. So obviously, we as teachers, we not only teach about what the subject is, but also how you want to help students to become better persons, to learn how to live as a society, as a functioning member of society with a good moral compass. And so you create these settings, and in these settings, there's always conflict. There's always something that is. So as I said, the world is in a status quo. The world is completely frozen, but that doesn't mean that there isn't conflict. Imagine it like the 100 years war between France and England, which actually it's longer than 100 years, and it was basically a status quo. That it doesn't mean that there weren't dynamics involved, but the war didn't stop. And so basically, if you wanted to create a world in which that war is ongoing, what happens is that no one gains terrain, no one loses. There's always just fighting, but nothing really happens. And so what happens here is that she created a society which is very wealthy, very advanced technologically, but it's lacking a few things. So first of all, obviously, it's not well structured. So it views women as superior to men in all situations. And so that creates an ethical dilemma that you want students to or not, to resolve. But that's not only it. Although they are very wealthy and they're very advanced, they lack creativity. And so their lives are incomplete. They are always looking for art and art expressions like paintings or theater groups and all of that. And that creates dynamics. They need something. And then someone else has it. Will they steal it? Will they take it away? Will they trade it for something else? Will that allow the student to find new characters? Because we're talking about building characters, but remember this, the world is full of characters. So you're not only creating characters for your students, you're creating characters for the world as well, for those dynamics to happen. Okay, and so this is a really good example, and I'm going to add this to the drive so that you can have a different, a more in-depth idea of what it's being built here. And this is like a document that is continuously being changed.
So I was imagining, when I've been reading your articles before about creating Liber Domus, that you started, because I guess that's the way a lot of learning professionals start. You start with the learning outcomes, and I was imagining it must have been an incredibly difficult process for you then to go, right, here's the learning outcomes, right, let's create a world, let's write a story. But now I realise that you've made life very easy for yourself. You go off and find these stories, and then find the stories that are going to be suitable to fit the learning outcomes into. It makes the whole thing look a lot less daunting. I'm not saying it's easy at all. I'm joking, but it just seems like a really, really good way of going about it. So you find these starters and you go, okay, which starter would be suitable for STEM? Which, what additional bits can I put in that would bring about that learning outcome?
Yeah, that's basically it. And that doesn't mean that this is prototyping, because when you go into a classroom with this prepared, that doesn't mean that it's not going to change completely, but it is a basis for something, and it is a quick basis. I'm not saying that
it's a world in which those things can happen, and you're not sort of specifying what's going to happen. You're just going, here is the world. Let's see the world unfold. Let's see what happens when we interact with it.
Yeah, exactly. And that gives you structure, because if you're not doing this, you're basically making it up as you go along, and that can go well, or that can go very, very badly. And with students, as soon as you lose them, as teachers, we all know what happens. You find it very hard to get them back. And in terms of immersion, that's what happens. If you have a world that's big enough and a story that's big enough for you to accommodate everything that you want to put into it, and even additional dynamics that happen afterwards, because the group is going to be changing this, you protect yourself from further situations up ahead that might happen. And yeah, the idea is exactly that. It doesn't mean that you're going to be experts, or that you're going to be making massive worlds all of a sudden and very quickly after this workshop. What I'm saying is that with these tools, and with the online generators, and with the seeds, and everything that we have here, and it took us a while to find, but you already have it inside the folder, it should take you up to about 3 to 4 days to build a map, to build a few characters, just to get the setting going, a very big narrative to create a setting for the world in terms of what's going to happen in the future. And then you have adventures. Then you come here, and with all of the characters that you have already built, with the narrative, you explain to the group, okay, this group is a group of outcasts. They're not wanted by anyone else. They're of a specific race, and no one wants them inside their city walls. And so they decided to build a new city, and they wanted to prosper. And so they started building houses, but first of all, they needed tools. And that means that right now they have tents, only tents. And tents are okay because it's summer, but that doesn't mean that's going to be like this forever. So situation needs to change, and I'm teaching mathematics. So I want them to understand how long it's going to take them to travel from here to here. Imagine that it's about 20 kilometers, and they can travel about 2 kilometers per day, given that it's not unknown terrain and it's wooded space. Afterwards, we want to build a bridge. Let's think about bridges. Let's think about the angles in which they are built and what type of materials we want. And let's talk about weight, where we're going to find the materials to build a bridge. How many stones we can carry, how are we going to carry the stones into the place, and all of that. And all of a sudden you have an adventure in which you can connect a lot of mathematical topics. It doesn't mean that it's going to cover everything, or even the most important topics, but it's going to be just one of the adventures. For example, me and Bruno, just the other day, we were creating a potion system in which the students had to use fractions to create potions. In another situation, one of the bridges we built, it's a little unstable. So funny enough, anyone that wants to cross the bridge can only cross it using the stones which have prime numbers in them. All of the other stones are unstable and will lead you to fall off the bridge. So that's another adventure. And I think there's like thousands of quests that are already crossing my mind regarding this type of scenario. And what you need to do then, and that's I think that's the next part of our lesson or workshop is, let me just check, where are we? I'm lost here. I think, yeah, I'm here. Okay, how to connect the subject's theory and concept regarding the world that you just built. And Sarah already gave us a bit of a help here. There are easy topics and difficult topics. History, languages, geography. I'm not saying they are easy, but they are easy compared to other topics. And when you get to difficult topics, that's where the difficulty begins regarding connecting quests with educational contents, like chemistry or physics or mathematics. But what we wanted to do is wanted just to save a little bit of time to assure you that it is possible to create quests. It is really something that you practice and you get good at it. And then with students, they give you ideas for quests. Like they look at the map and they see something that you didn't. Why are you going to pick up iron here? Why don't we explore the tower right next to us? Maybe it has already some tools or some iron we can steal from there. Maybe it's abandoned. And so we can scavenge it for resources. And okay, you create a quest. You create a quest in which you need to advance inside the tower without being seen. And so you need to create a fog. And so let's talk about chemistry. How do we chemically create a fog that will allow you to go unseen? Or maybe a potion to make people fall asleep. And obviously you're not going to talk with students about a potion to make people fall asleep in real life, but it is a setting that you can then use to talk about chemical elements. You can use it to talk about chemical reactions. And that gives you a setting good enough for students to allow you to ramble about anything you want in terms of the subject you want to teach, and they will be listening because it might be important for them to develop the quest. And then you throw it at them. Okay, create me a potion. Give me ideas. But it has to have a chemical reaction, and it has to have about 4 chemical reagents. And all of a sudden, they're looking at the periodical table, they're looking at different combinations of different chemical elements, and so on, all by themselves. And you can make it a group project. All of a sudden, 5 of them are exploring the tower and they're creating a potion. The other part are creating carts to carry the stolen goods from the tower back to the camp. And so let's create a cart. And so on. And so there's tons of stuff you can do. And it's a really easy setting. And as soon as kids are engaged in this, they're going to give you more settings that you'll even need for the whole school year. I think that's it. Right now, it's a good time before talking about levels and rewards to ask if someone has questions regarding this.
Yes, I would say it's sort of like, obviously we're booked until 8 o'clock. So if anybody has questions now will be a good time to ask them. Just unmute yourself if you have a question.
I think not.
Clarify everything. Brian, maybe.
Just happy listening. I'd like you to continue until 8 o'clock.
All right. So
maybe I can just explore this little part that Eduardo said very well, that we cannot not only find a specific situation for a specific content, but we can find any content in a specific situation that appears. And I'm just thinking about the bridge construction, and you can actually get to every subject just with this little thing, like bridge construction. Okay, let's think about wood. We'll think about trees, and then we can like think about science. Okay, what kind of trees do we have? We can do an exploring activity where kids need to research about which trees are good for the environment, which trees are not. So, and from then, okay, we need to cut them. How should we cut them? How do we cut trees? How many trees do we need? How can we harvest wood to make bridges from trees? How does that process happen? And from then on, just this little thing about building one single bridge, we can really have many subjects and many kinds of activities. Yeah, we can keep going because we have just 9 minutes.
Yeah, regarding levels and rewards, we wanted to focus a little bit on this specifically because this is a long-term motivator. Okay, this is an intrinsic motivator that we're building to our classroom. Talking a little bit more regarding the scientific part of this. RPGs and world building is really an amazing tool because even if you're not really that interested in fantasy settings or creating worlds, children are. Children are living always in a level of creativity and imagination that's far beyond what we have every single day. And this gives us a really interesting motivation for the long term. But that doesn't mean that we can take it a step further and create small extrinsic motivations like rewards. And that actually helps build immersion, build motivation for every day, and build engagement for those more challenging individuals, more challenging students, and those that thrive on competition and getting better and better and better. This is a question that me and Bruno had to answer to. Like, we have a world like Liberdomus, which is built so that students can have a minimum of knowledge of each topic, enough for them to get through the whole year. Okay, the idea was to build a world, to build a game in which the students would start in the beginning of the year, and at the end of the year, they would know as much as reading the whole manual. But we thought, why stop there? Why not just go further? Why not go for excellency? And that obviously will get every kind of student. We'll get those students that are fine with just average, and we'll have those students who are going to be so immersed, so interested in this world, even if no one else in the classroom is, that they will want to play further and further and further. And that allows them to excel. And we don't want that to stop. We don't want that to be taken away from them, to be taken that opportunity. We want to take advantage of this, obviously. And so we'll create rewards, we'll create levels. And that means that you can create rewards for competitions, for example. One of the things that we're doing in Liberdomus, but this is actually with the development team, is that for each challenge our development team goes through, developed by me, which is challenging in terms of programming the game, they get a coin from the game, a 3D printed coin from the game that no one else in the world is going to have. And obviously they can't trade that for money. It doesn't mean I'm giving them a money reward. It's a token. It's something that they'll treasure, not only because it's unique, and you can make it really unique, because we even placed here in the online generators document, we even have here, where is it? A currency generator, 2 currency generators actually, so you can even create that for your own classroom. And you can create this kind of rewards, equipment, you can print the map and give it to them. You can create all of these little things that they'll treasure because it's their world, it's their adventures, it's their characters. And that will allow them to reach further. And you can do that connected with levels of excellency. Like if you develop, for example, if you build a bridge, that's the basic level. And you build the bridge and that's it. You can go to the mine and harvest resources there. And then you can move on to the next adventure, which is to use those resources to build tools. And then from building tools to building houses. But then you go to the students and say, well, the bridge is fine, but it's not that sturdy. I think we could go further. What kind of material we could use, or what kind of constructions we could use to build a better bridge, or build a second bridge closer to our camp, so that we don't have to go all the way across a village or across a difficult region to go to the mine. But this bridge is going to be bigger, so our model doesn't work right now. And so you create a new level. And that level is going to be hard. Like in our potion system that we created for the game, we're going to have a potion system that is going to allow them to move on in a specific quest. But then we're going to have an urban area, I don't know how to say it, but like a herbs system in which you have a guild which builds potions. And that guild will have a profession system. And then you can be a master potion crafter, something like that. And all of a sudden, you need to learn about fractions to take out 1/3 of the content inside the flask, which is 3/4 full. And then instead of having one, you have 3 flasks. And instead of having 3, you have 10 flasks. And all of a sudden, you have this massive system of fractions, which the student has to resolve in order to get like this amazing potion, which will give him endurance to walk 100 miles in one single day. That kind of, or that they can sell for 30 gold pieces. And that type of excellency is what really will want them to push forward. So you'll probably do this one student or one group of students, or if you're lucky enough with the whole classroom. But you should think about this. That's the main point. You should think about ways of allowing the students inside the game with ways that may or may not connect with the whole adventure to progress further. And you can make that specific assignments for specific students. And all of a sudden you have someone who's an expert in fractions, another one who's an expert in chemistry, another one who's an expert in geometry, and all of that. Okay, so this was one of the things that we really wanted for you to focus on. We are already 2 minutes to 8 o'clock, and we haven't covered like half of what we thought we would be covering, including building the whole world. But I hope this was enough, and we will be sharing all of this. So I think this is more than enough for you to create a lot of worlds and look and delve more deeply into this. But yeah, I'll stop sharing right now and ask once again if anyone has questions.
I think I just have to say it's very generous of you, because you've clearly done a lot of work. I mean, I know all this stuff has been made available by other people free of charge, but you've put the effort into finding it all and telling us all about it. And I think that's really generous. Thank you so much for all of that. It's really, really interesting. Yeah,
okay.
I for one, I've got so many ideas in my head now about worlds I want to create, and little bits of narrative for various learning outcomes that I'm working on at the moment. So yeah.
Yeah, and we also wanted to share with Sarah. I think I already mentioned this, but I'll say it to the whole group as well. And our idea is that if you want to share these ideas with us, or struggles that you're having in building worlds, or situations in which you built worlds for the classroom and you work really well and you want to share them with us, or if you want to further explore, we might want to do I don't know if weekly, but maybe bi-weekly workshops, little workshops in which we can detail worlds, and we can start practically building worlds if you want. It's really good for us because it trains our creativity, and it also helps us create stories, just like Sarah said. Like, this is food for the brain, and so we would love to continue doing this.
Yeah, this will be fantastic. Like, you would share with us, and we'll like increase our knowledge with that, and we'll like try to help you as well. Because We'll be
Okay.
really interested if you could like share your own experiences with us as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Like a book club, but only for world building. That would be awesome.
Kind of like that, yeah.
Yeah, I think we should definitely, yeah, Ludagogy is definitely right behind that. And anything I can do to help facilitate that, just let me know.
Awesome.
And yeah.
Okay.
And anybody else, if you want to get involved with that, do you want to drop your emails and contact details in the chat, Eduardo and Bruno?
Yeah, maybe we can do that. And I want to thank regarding like what you're saying here on the chat and saying that you enjoyed the session.
Yeah, for sure. This is what we wanted. We wanted for people to get engaged in building worlds and not be scared about starting, because nowadays it's not that hard to get started. Even small settings like Bruno for the third grade, he created like a really small piece of a map, and that was more than enough for a lot of classes. So yeah, even if you want, start small, start with just a few characters with a small setting, and you should be fine. Yeah, all of a sudden you're building like massive worlds like we're doing.
Brilliant. What I will do, obviously this recording is going to go up on Ludagogy. I shall, I don't think the chat doesn't automatically get recorded like everything else, but I shall put your, I shall edit it and put your details on the screen at the end so that people can get in touch with you. And yeah, we'll see what we can do about having a world building club.
Okay, awesome. All right.
Cool. Well, thank you very, very much. And thank you everybody for showing up to join in. I think it was a really, really exciting session, and yeah, looking forward to seeing what emerges.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your evening, morning, whatever time of day it is, wherever you are.
All right.
Bye.